Hello, everyone. Welcome to our weekly scheduled live stream show. I'm very excited to be here again with all of you. And I kind of wanted to say that I feel kind of in the same boat as you watching on YouTube and Facebook, because I get to say the intro and then really listen to the live stream. And then at the end, think about what we learned together. So it's cool to be with an audience and, following the conversation. Today, we're going to talk about something really important, which is change. And especially how coaching can help create change. And that's a really interesting topic, because change is something that human beings are really good at, but also it's really hard for us in some cases. It's really a challenge. Even though we might want to change, we don't know how, and there is a lot of barriers that come up. And so I'm really interested in hearing how coaching specifically can really help us create this change, and what are some skills, what are some tools that we can use, and we'll hear a lot more about that. I want to introduce the moderator for today, Joshua Friedman, our CEO.
Hey, Tom. Hi, everybody. We have, as usual, people signing in from all over the world. Hi, Linda. I know you're in Mexico, and Florence, I don't know where. From Tennessee. Hi, David. Davin, sorry. And Natalie from France, and Michela from Firenze, and Marilyn, glad to see you here, our coaching expert. Matt, great to see you again. Priyal, hello from India. And we have more. I'm going to stop there. But one of the things that's really exciting to me is that we have people on our panel today from lots of geography of the world. And so we'll get to have some perspectives on coaching and change from different cultural backgrounds and different views in the world. And one of the things that's very special for me about the work that we do at 6 Seconds is this connection around the world, and this idea that despite a pandemic, despite all the distances, we can be here with people from so many different places, and working on our practice and working on creating change in ourselves and in the world. And that's really one of our themes today. One of the things that I find very powerful about coaching and 6 Seconds coaching approach is what Marilyn calls the self as coach work. And we're going to talk today a little bit about the difference between being a coach and doing coaching, and how we do that work to grow internally, to change internally as part of our work to support clients to grow and change. So with that, I would like to invite our panelists to come in, and I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself by tell us a little something about you, and then in one sentence, what's one way you've changed in this process of learning to be a coach? So who wants to go first? Unmute yourself. Paul, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first then. I didn't want to dive in, want to give the ladies a chance first. So as you can see by a bit of my bio, I've worked in human resources for 30 years in the UK. I've been on the EQ journey with 6 Seconds over the last 3 years, so still feel like a relative novice compared to some of the experts I've met. But fully bought into the 6 Seconds and the coaching process. In terms of my thing I've gained, in terms of my change with going through the sort of coaching certifications with 6 Seconds, is silence. So learning when not to speak.
We'll just let the silence be there for a moment.
Yes, exactly. Embrace it.
Go ahead, Reem.
Okay. I'm Reem from Saudi Arabia. I started my life with 6 Seconds 3 years ago, just like Paul. And it has been enlightenment for me. And I think the major thing I learned to be present. I'm a mother and a grandmother and a worker. I have been working in the education sector for the last 26 years. So I think always I have a lot in my mind, what I learned to be present in everything I do. Thank you.
Thanks, Reem. And Joyce, how about for you?
Yeah, hello from Shanghai. I'm a HR in a multinational company, and I also love my another role, EQ coach. I started learning EQ with 6 seconds in 2018, and it's really changed me a lot. The most thing I changed is I'm confident with every feelings and emotions. Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. It's an amazing journey, this process of learning to be a coach. And we think we might go into it to coach others. But I think what we find is that a huge part of the experience is what happens inside us, and how that then in turn helps us actually be a better coach. We're talking today about coaching as a process of change. And sometimes people think, oh, well, coaching, that's sort of chatting about something. But of course, we're chatting about something for a purpose. So in your experience, what is it that makes coaching transformational? Reem, you want to go ahead?
Yes, please. I think the principle of 6 seconds, which is wisdom lives within, and through coaching is not conversation. Okay, it is deeper than this. It's towards a goal that you are reaching somewhere, and that makes you, first of all, organized. Even if you are if your thoughts are not organized, you become organized. You are using your inner wisdom to see the way, and that helps a lot. So it helps me as a coach while I was in the process of learning. And to tell you the truth, the process or the change started from within me before I tried to help other or to stand with others to change.
Paul, you have thought to add there?
Yeah. For me, I think the space element is really important. It's about creating that environment where people can actually take the time to reflect and think about what's going on. And again, for me, the 6 seconds framework of the change map, I really love that a lot, because I think that can, that visual image can help people enable that change and to move forward. Certainly for me, the element of turning fear into courage was a one that I still reflect on now. If I'm sort of scared to move forward and do something new, to know that you can cross that bridge and turn that into actually just get going. And that's where you get the goodness and the learning. So for me, that space followed by that framework, I think, is really important.
So, Joyce, you are working in a pretty big company. And how are people responding to the idea of coaching in China? And you work globally in your role. So in China and with your clients globally, what are you seeing when you introduce this idea of coaching as a process of change?
Coaching as a new thing in China, it started 10 years ago, and now it's more popular to be understood by more and more people. Still, it's quite often we met people, they think coaching is like a gym coach, like a sport coach, and sometimes we need to talk about the how our coach, EQ coach, difference with others. for the young generation, they are really have the idea to develop themselves. So they search different or new way to support them. So coaching is more popular in new generation. In what can in our organization, it's different. For the developed country, people are quite familiar with coach, but for other developing country or other area, it's not so popular. So it's still way we promote our coach.
And how about in Saudi Arabia, Reem? Are people, when you say I'm a coach, what do they say?
Okay. First of all, it's very similar to Joyce, like in China. It's a new thing in Saudi Arabia, last 8 years, maximum 10 years, not more than that. And in the beginning, it started with women accepting the ideas. Men were kind of more resistant, like, oh, we're the superheroes, and maybe that's not for us. And it was a lot like they didn't know the difference between coaching and therapist or consultant. For me, for example, I'm a consultant for the last 13 years. So people, when they come to me after I become a coach, I will tell them like, I used to be a consultant, now I'm your coach, and what's the difference between coaching and consultations, so people will grow knowledge and know more about it, and know why we're here. So sometimes some people will tell me, no, I came for a consultation and I don't want coaching. And then I'm like, okay, I respect. If you know what you want, then I respect, and I can be handy anyway. And for the new generation, certainly we are at a different level, because they are looking for coaches. They are, especially the people that got their degrees from the States or UK or any other parts of the world. They are looking for coach, for the life coach, career coach, anything, even in their work, in their career, in every certain aspect. So there is a movement, certainly.
And Paul, how about in the tech sector where you are in the North of England?
Yeah. So I think even in the UK overall, it still feels like it's not as common as you would potentially want it to be. Maybe particularly in the Northeast, where we're seen as sort of hard men, that there's times where it feels like we're still a bit reluctant to go into this soft thing. So for me, in terms of trying to get out there and do some work in the region, it feels like that there's a bit of doing a bit of Geordie translation. So a Geordie, somebody from Newcastle, the northeast of England, and really sort of trying to put it in hard terms. So using the self-science data, so using a lot of those things to try and encourage people from the tech sector. But to be honest, when I've worked with people in those environments, so those are the areas that I predominantly work with, people in like accountancy, technology, engineering, you can really see that it starts to make sense to them. So I think it's grown, and certainly there's an increased number of coaches, I think, in the Northeast, just bearing in mind some of the sessions that I go to, it's becoming more prevalent, but still feels like it's very much in its infancy to becoming a common practice in business.
This is a little bit of a advertising question, but why did you choose 6 seconds for your coach training?
Okay, I did last. Shall I go first with this one?
Sure.
Yeah. It was actually through just somebody who I knew, Catherine Roth, who I think many of you will know. And the two things that really swayed me, I love the simplicity of the tools. So I like to think of myself as a simple person. I'm the lowest common denominator in that if I can understand it, anybody else can. And I thought if I can get it, then I can translate that to other people too. And the second thing, and possibly the most important thing, it was the community. So it didn't feel like I was going to go on a course and then I had a qualification, then it's right, okay, I've got your money, off you go. There's a sense where that even after that session, the people I went on the course with, the tutors, and yourself, Josh, and the people in 6 Seconds that I've come across are really a supportive network where people will be willing to help you out. So that community and that post sort of course support was definitely what swayed it for me, and it's actually been true to what Catherine said it was, if not more than I ever expected. So yeah, thank you for that.
Awesome, thank you. Reem, you have a thought?
Yeah. It happened that I was, I'm an instructor, diving instructor. So I was training Sulafa Batarji, who is the preferred partner for 6 Seconds in Saudi Arabia, and her kids. And while we were doing the training, the diving training, she was like, you know, what you're doing is all emotional intelligence. I was like, what? You know, I have been in the field of psychology for a long time and sociology, but like the name of emotional intelligence was, what is this exactly? So she said, there is like this EQPC, can you attend? And I attended and I felt in love with the whole idea, the concept. Especially what attracted my attention first was emotions drive people and people drives drive performance. I was like, okay, this is interesting, and I can see this in the in the education sector where I work since, as I said, 26 years ago, and in the diving sector as well. So it made a lot of sense, and that's where I was like, okay, I like the idea, and then I learned more about 6 Seconds and the community, as Paul mentioned. Um, and I love the concept. After that, working on it, I was like, I'm lucky to be part of this team.
I'm fascinated by the idea of coaching and EQ and diving, and now also horseback riding.
Yes, hopefully soon.
And so there's an interesting connection in your work with being in nature, being in the world, and the kind of connection between the internal experience and the experience of the world around us. I wonder if you could just share a little bit about how that's playing into your coaching.
Okay. First of all, through diving or hiking or horseback riding, all of them, you're getting the person out of their comfort zone, okay, to try something new. So it's very nice and beautiful. While before they start, we do the, like for them, the C, or the assessment, like to know where they are standing, and then upon that we build a plan what to concentrate on based on the group. Like we have, we can concentrate of effectiveness or health, on well-being or whatever, based on the plan with that we do for youth with the parents, and we start the plan. Everything is related. While, for example, okay, in diving, you have to have a buddy and you take care of your buddy. So you're responsible of yourself and for the other person next to you. And if he is weak or she's weak, okay, you have to be just on the same level. You can't just let them and go by yourself. So you build empathy, okay? And then you have a bigger goal. And so it's a lot. I can speak about this till the morning, Josh. Okay, you don't have to. If I start, I will not stop.
Well, I want to come diving with you one of these days soon.
Red Sea is beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful idea. And Joyce, can you talk a little bit about how you're getting buy-in for emotional intelligence in your work? What is the, what's the pitch that you're using? How are you getting your organizational clients to say, yeah, I'm willing to work on this?
We are a chemical company, and people in our organization are most engineering background and scientist background. So in the most of the time, we focus on the data process, procedure, analysis, something like that. And actually, I always say, okay, we collect data for decision. Remember, decision is by human being, and people make decision. If we just collect the data for the objectives, how about people? Should we collect information or data from people to make sure our decision is most suitable? So when I talk with people like this, sometimes they buy in. And for the, I think 6 Seconds has a great advantage that we have all kind of tools like assessment. It provides some data, which is very helpful to support our engineering or scientists to start to use the report as a coach. So also we have TFK card, EQ coach card. That's very helpful. When people start playing the card, they are more easy to buy in or coach, EQ coach.
Yeah, so there's something there about making it tangible. One of the things I love about engineers is, I mean, they're often quite resistant at the beginning, but once they're like, okay, this makes sense, then they're like, I have the plan, I'm going to optimize for this, and get the data and make it real. Paul, you mentioned the change map, and I just thought I'd share with everyone. For years, I've been saying, you know, if I were to redo the change map today, I would make one little change. Does anybody notice the change that I've made on this new version? I don't know if we can put us on the side now. I'll give you a hint. It's in the red lines. What'd you notice?
Did they go back and forward? Did they go?
Yeah, I added the
in
arrows
and out?
Going in and out. It used to be that the arrows went from frustration to excitement.
I totally agree with that, because I mean, like, it keeps coming and going. That's true with the change, because like it's a cycle.
Yeah, and like with frustration, I actually think frustration is really valuable in the change process.
Mm-hmm.
So we shouldn't just say, oh, let's go just to excitement, but sometimes we need to bring back that frustration. Anybody have a thought about this new version? Paul, what do you...
I love it. The frustration with the excitement. This is exactly where we stand, like in diving or in horseback riding, because like you use the frustration from the unknown and to get to the excitement, and then from the excitement you go back to the frustration, and it's there, and the learning is happening, or the change is happening, actually.
Right, and that experience of overcoming the challenge and moving forward then gives us energy and a sense of efficacy or capability or agency that, yeah, I can do another step.
Exactly.
Paul, what are you thinking over there?
Yeah, I think that when you talk about, you know, there are no good and bad emotions, and all of those things have a purpose. So even the ones that seem to have that negative connotation, actually, you're right, you know, will give us that emotion, that energy and motion to drive us to do things. So yeah, I think that's an interesting shift in terms of actually you can go between the two, and it's about I guess using those things at the right time, recognizing that they're there, and actually what are you going to do with those emotions. So that was sort of an interesting shift for me.
And I think in the world today, I imagine many people with COVID and the uncertainty and climate changes and economic changes, so a lot of the feelings in the middle here. And I think that's one of the reasons why we really need more EQ coaches, is that people are struggling, and these emotions aren't bad, but they're hard. And so, what are the tools that can help people? Listen, I want to take a moment and just see if there's anybody who is here in the chat on the live stream. If you have a question for anybody on the panel about their experience with coaching and EQ coaching and being a coach, please go ahead and pop them in there, and I'll just say, bring in a couple comments about that change in the change map. And Della, I think that's right. That in a way, I think about it like, if you hold onto the string of a kite, the kite can rise. But if you let go of the string, the kite just falls down. And so the inner circle is like holding the string, and then that helps the kite rise. And then this kind of iterative process. All right. So other questions anybody has? Maybe let's talk a little bit more. Natalie brings up this importance of data in technical culture. And we might think of EQ coaching being very sort of touchy-feely, or not having data, not being data-driven. What is your experience with that, of kind of this blending of the emotional and rational using data in coaching? Anyone want to share? Paul, let's go to you.
Okay. Josh, could you just repeat the question again? Sorry.
Data in coaching, how does it work?
For me, it's very much, especially if you're dealing with technical people, it can be like a way in. Maybe not necessarily that sort of data side, but there's just somebody I've been working with recently who it felt like that maybe weren't exactly getting it until the point where I talked about it actually being quicker to sort of, think about what the feelings are for you and the others, in order to get to the heart of the thing. And it was more efficient and it saved time. And then it was like, oh my God, it saves time. And so there was a sense of using a more analytical approach and using maybe some of those harder terms that then can help, I guess, make sense to people. And then once it makes sense, they maybe have their mind opened a little bit more to other possibilities.
And Joyce, when you're working with a team, what are you seeing happen when you start having a bunch of people having this kind of data and using this data in their conversations?
Yeah, actually, in our company, there's data shows everything. So before we make any decision, data analysis is the must. So there's a lot of data expertise. They can make data analysis perfect. Meanwhile, I also see it's quite often that we can see a perfect PPT, but people doesn't agree that. So what's the reason behind? Sometimes we discuss this situation in our teams. So people start to understand that sometimes it's not only data, sometimes it's because of people. The people, they have their, requirements or their needs, but it's not related with data. So that's just the feeling. So that's another kind of data we missed.
Yeah, so there's an interesting problem I see often in education. School systems are often very focused on data, and Reem, you may have seen this as well. And they forget that this data about students, about teachers, about parents, about society is actually data about people. And it becomes this sort of abstract thing, like, well, let's look at this chart and forget, hey, behind the chart are human beings. And so it's almost like this connecting process. I like what Bryn put in the chat here about actually coaching can be a process of helping us kind of bring this data to life and find meaning inside that. And Mary Clara, thank you. There is data everywhere. And one of the things that's fascinating about emotions, of course, is that emotional data is available to you, like on people's faces, in people's voices all the time, whether you choose to tune into that or not. Here's a question that's, I'm not sure quite how you might answer, but I'm curious if anyone has a thought on this. Cultural differences in EQ programs.
Okay. Yes, I think, I mean, like, there is cultural differences for sure, and there is individuality as well. So within the culture, there are different people, different backgrounds within one culture. And certainly, yes, we should actually consider the cultures. And I can give an example that I was talking to my mentor coach about. Like in my culture, it is not polite, okay, to stop a person while they're emotionally, talking about the change they need or whatever. And then as a coach, you have to sometimes do your time management, and not get into the story as she wants or he wants to tell. So then you have to use your skills and direct questions to direct that, like more professionally. And sometimes this is for me is quite a hard decision to do, or a hard, because like my culture does not accept this. So I have to work it out. I have to think about it. I have to not to feel shy or guilty or shame because I stopped someone while she was telling her story or his story. You know what I mean? So in other cultures, I don't think they have the same issue as we do. So that's just like an example of how culture difference. At the same time, again, I'll go back and say individuals in the same culture, they are individuality as well.
Yeah. Joyce, do you have a thought about this, cultural differences in EQ programs?
Yes, I saw that. I can remember there is a game. There's a game in our EQ classes that we give the different kind of music from different country. I can see people give the different people shows different how to say interpret in different way. For example, some music in China is quite happy, but for some Western people, they can feel noisy, and some of Western music, Chinese people could not understand what's really mean. So I think that's the cultural difference.
Well, yeah. I wanted to answer this question, and also in reference to culture. And something that's been just fascinating for me is I don't speak any Chinese other than saying ni hao and cha long bao. But I've spent a lot of time in China in the last few years. And in the first 2 years, I would go and I would hear people talking in Chinese, and I would think, are they annoyed with each other? Because the tone and volume, if somebody was speaking English in that way, it would represent being annoyed. And so I had to know myself and notice the assumptions that I was making, and then choose myself, stop and say, wait a minute, I need to not be in my own pattern here, and then give myself, which is about opening up myself beyond myself and saying, let me really tune in here. And what I found is now after a few years, when I'm in China and I'm listening to somebody or coaching somebody with the help of our wonderful translator, Rachel, I can feel what they're feeling. But it took me a long time to be able to kind of get my own bias and my own assumptions, my own culture, my own norms out of the way. And I think that might be an interesting part about where we get emotional data. It's filtered through our own glasses and our own assumptions.
Josh, I mean, for me, just to add to that and going back to the change map, I think that curiosity is like a really important piece when it comes to maybe overcoming some of those cultural differences, and a bit of, blast off, 1, 2, 3, pasta, just actually doing it and just asking the question. So if you're feeling a bit uncertain about what is the tone, what is the sentiment behind this, just be curious and ask those questions. And yeah, you might make a mistake, hopefully not too bad a one, but then you can go, sorry, that's not what I meant, and try and understand. I'm just trying to understand what's going on. And I think that's a great way of overcoming some of those barriers.
Yeah, and that place of curiosity, I think, is it goes back to this point about doing the work ourselves, because it's so easy to be, as we come back to that change map, it's so easy to be in the place of judgment, which is useful sometimes, but it is different than being curious. And if we're making assumptions, we're not being curious. Noticing that. I wanted to bring up this question, which was about resistance. And I'm curious for any of you, what's been the resistance you've encountered, and what have you done with that?
For me, actually working with people, I've been really lucky. So far, I've actually sort of, when I've set things up, I've said, look, if people don't want to work with me, because it's in an organizational setting, then they've got to be open to doing this. Maybe that's me taking the easy route out of it. But I guess I don't want to waste the organization's time, money, mine, theirs. If they think that their life's fine and it's going well and they've got nothing new to pick up from it and their life's great, then it does seem a bit of a waste. I think in terms of some of the resistance I felt is just where maybe people have not been tuned into their feelings. So they have this, they know that something's going wrong and they know they want to do something about it, but they've maybe never spent time examining how they feel. And one client that I worked with just really struggled, and I was conscious that I started to feel bad, that I was doing a bad job because I wasn't maybe doing enough to get them there. And then there was just a moment of epiphany where they just had a breakthrough and an old experience which brought to the surface some feelings. And it was such an amazing thing. So, the fact that it sticks in my mind now means that sometimes a bit of just maybe asking better questions, picking up on better clues, really tuning into the person, and just spending time maybe being more silent, just using some of those techniques to maybe just, I was going to say prize out, but it's prizing out what's already there. So that was probably the time when I felt, is this going well? And there was some resistance, although it was a resistance because they didn't know, rather than them actively trying to block the process.
Yeah, I remember working with a bank, and the senior leadership team at the bank was really not super interested in EQ at the beginning. But one of the breakthrough moments was a one-to-one coaching session with the CFO, and looking at their, say, 360, and having this person who was very, very kind of locked down all of a sudden realize that their emotions were having a huge impact on their performance. And at the end just said, I was really doubtful about this whole EQ thing, and now I can see why this is valuable for us, even in a bank. So I was like, yes. Let's talk a little bit about this question of the difference between being a coach and doing the work of coaching. what does it mean to you to be a coach? Joyce, you have a thought about that? Reem?
You can go ahead, Joyce.
I think, yeah, I think coach is a idea for me. It's like a direction or approach for me. It's clear that I live in as a coach means I'm a partner and be patient, be tolerant, acceptable, and be curious. So when I take the coaching session, I put my coach head on my head. Then I can feel that I'm in the coach. What to say?
Mode.
Feeling, yeah. I can get the feeling with that fair, acceptable, flexibility, and curious. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I appreciate that it's, for example, empathy is a EQ competency that's not always been easy for me. And when I've got my coach hat on, it's so easy. Right? Like I just know this is my job now, is to really be present and engage and empathic. And I think part of the challenge for me is, can I do that in my daily life as well? And I'm making some progress.
Yeah, Josh, that reminds me of a book that I read a few years back by Joel Manby called Love Works. And I think he simplified it down to do goals and be goals. And it was, I guess, based on the fact that he wasn't doing very well on the be goals bit. But reading that difference between coaching and coach, coaching seems to be more like a transaction, an activity, a movement, whereas being a coach is more of a presence, which like puts me in mind of like a stillness. I don't know if that makes sense, but those are the things that go on in my head when I look at that question.
Yeah, I'm very similar to you, Paul, in seeing it like coaching is the learning process, the skills that we are gaining while we are, coaching. But being a coach is actually when you live it and you don't fake it. So this is how I see being a coach. I'll give an example. A few days ago, my daughter had a fight with someone, and she was calling me, la 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 la. She's telling me the whole story, and I started, asking her, being curious, just being myself. And she said, Mama, don't start coaching me. And I was like, what? You know what I mean? It just happened. I'm there for her, but I was doing this. I was being it, okay? And she was shouting, don't start this. I was like, okay, you know what? That's your mama, and that's just the good listener.
I remember one of my kids, when I think around 9 years old, said, "Stop EQing us, Daddy."
Exactly. She said, "Stop coaching me." I was like, "Okay, I'm sorry." No, I didn't mean.
But I just got a text from my son yesterday, upset about something, and my first reaction was to tell him what to do, and I'm like, "No, I'm going to be coach," and I just sent back some questions. And what was surprising to me is, after a little while, he wrote back and he said, "That was really good advice."
Uh-huh.
And what was funny is I didn't actually give any advice. I just asked questions.
You ignite him. That's it. The wisdom from within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. This is it.
Somebody was asking about in the chat was asking about the process of coaching. And one of the things that's been really interesting for me is I'm pretty introverted. And I know that's surprising for some people when they, see me on stage or whatever, but it's in the sort of unstructured situations where I feel very outside, and I don't know what to do. And one of the things that's been really interesting for me is that in coaching, I've had a structure or a process where I can engage with people in a very profound and personal way, but it has a structure that makes it comfortable for me. And I'm wondering if any of you have found that this practice, the structures, the tools of coaching, how are they changing the way you relate to people? How are they changing your way of interacting in the world?
For me, I believe in this structure 100% because it gave me a line. It gave me like the roadmap, especially when you start with building trust, with being authentic, with, with asking like why you're here, all these things. So good listening, direct questions, everything on the structure helps me and the other person as well to achieve where we would like to go together. So I see it as a partnership to achieve a goal together. And for this partnership, we have to be aligned and to have a contract. And this is what we do together. So it's an amazing structure.
I want to just mention this comment from Mary Clara, and I think this is true, that a lot of coaching methodologies focus on script. They focus on a kind of transactional process. And I think that often when you're a beginning coach, you're like, okay, what do I do? And you like it when somebody says, okay, just follow these steps. And then pretty quickly, those steps get in the way of you actually engaging authentically.
Yeah.
And that, as you said, Mary Claire, that script is a doing and not a being.
Just in my experience, so I went on my coaching foundation, and Marilyn, who's on this call, I'm sure will testify. I found that going up was really interesting. So within the first sort of day or two, and I'm going, oh my God, I got some great tools, and I'm now a coach, and I can, use some of these frameworks. And then on day 3, I just completely lost it because I was so busy focusing on the mechanics of trying to learn and assimilate something new that I actually lost what was actually good about the coaching that I'd done before, which was bringing my authentic self to that. And that's what gained the trust with the clients. They believed in that. And so I'd sort of gone full circle a little bit, where I'd started off maybe doing it a bit more instinctively, naturally being present, to trying to incorporate these more mechanical things, to then actually going back around again to how can I go back to that presence. But actually having permeated through that rock, hopefully a few extra minerals were there at the end. So it was more of a tweaking of that natural gut instinct than it was I'm using now this whole new tool set. So for me, even in those 4 days, I felt there was sort of that real shift towards being a better coach, but just through just turning the cog a little bit, rather than trying to just change everything I do with, through a new coaching prism.
Joyce, how about you? What's changed for you in this way of interacting in the world?
Yeah, I think just like we learn everything at the start, we need to follow some process or structure, which helps us to start to practice. And just with more practice, then we can get everything in our own way. We can promote or we can develop the proper way that fit ourselves. And that time, I think that's coming to being part. So I think it really depends on people learning style. Some people, they really need have that as a start, but for others, maybe not. For me, I'm I'm obviously start from a process, but practice more than it's just going away.
There's some fascinating, coming back to the question of culture, there's some fascinating cultural differences in this. In 6 seconds, we have a principle, which is no way is the way. And so we resist giving prescriptive steps. And in some cultures, that's very problematic. We were like, just tell us the steps. No, we don't believe in steps. Okay, but tell us the steps that you don't believe in. Well, I have one more question that I wanted to ask. And in the chat, if anybody has another question, we have time for a couple of more. One of my questions is about pursuing noble goals in terms of finding and living your purpose as a person. How has coaching and being a coach helped you pursue your noble goal? Easy question.
Beautiful question.
Reem, how about you?
I'm a people person. I love people. I enjoy the growth of people. I enjoy the change. I have been in the education sector, as I said before, for the last 26 years, seeing little tiny ones growing into great men and women. And so coaching is certainly helping me a lot to pursue my goal, because my goal is people, is seeing people and achieving their dreams, achieving their goals, and helping them even through their obstacles, like any tiny little change or hard time they're passing through. So through coaching, I'm doing my passion, I'm performing my passion, and I'm living it towards my noble goal.
I wanted to bring back this comment from Michaela, coming back to the previous topic. There's one of our most popular articles on the website right now is about the fact that the 10,000 hour rule is a myth. And that whole idea, like 10,000 hours of practice makes mastery, is just not supported by research. But there is something about a lot of practice and hours of practice. It's not 10,000, but it's really focused practice where we move into that state of integrating. And we talked about the change map earlier.
Yes.
And interestingly, I find in Fio's comment here that it's as we become more confident that we're actually able to have more humility and to say, I don't know, and therefore I can be curious. Joyce, Paul, how is coaching and being a coach supporting you to pursue your noble goal? Joyce.
For me, I think during the coaching practice, as more I was coached, I get clear about my noble goal, and with my noble goal, just like a light ahead, so keep me do everything in the way to be there. So whatever situation or environment, I'm always try to change for achieve my noble goal. So to support everyone's growth is my noble goal. So sometimes in organization you could not go in the way you like. So sometimes you I have to find another way. So good thing is I never stopped and going wrong. So noble goal is just like a light ahead me to keep my passion for every change.
And I think this comment adds an important dimension, which is that it is our emotions that help us pay attention to that light and brighten that light. And sometimes it's our emotions that are dimming that light, and we need to grapple with those and learn from those. Paul, how about you? How is your noble goal and coaching working together? You're muted, Paul. You're practicing that silence.
Silence, yeah, it's important. So for me, sort of, I guess that for me, it's about bringing like joy to the people and the environments in which I work, and that's a long-term thing. And I think coaching really helps me with that. There's certainly times when those, as well as coaching others, actually coaching myself. More than I've ever done. And also not easy to do that, but there was just a question, I don't know if it was one I'd seen somewhere in the 6 seconds journey. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And so I used that question recently, and it really helped me move forward with a project that I was particularly stuck with. And I can see when I talk to clients that I guess they can tell that it's been very transformational for me. Hopefully an example of what emotional intelligence can do, as well as the people and the clients that I've worked with too. So I guess coaching and the questions aspect and the presence within yourself and presence with others, I think has really helped me, not just in business life, but actually just in full life too. So it definitely keeps me on the path.
And I think that people feel that. Right?
Yeah.
They can feel when it's real. They can feel when you're doing the work. They can feel when it's something that you're committed to work on. Yeah.
You're not just selling them something that's an off-the-shelf tool that I can do unto you. This is very much a case of I've lived it. This is my life experience. That's why I'm so passionate about it. And it's a genuine passion and a topic that means a lot to me, as opposed to just a job.
Well, thank you all for your sharing today and for all of your amazing work as EQ coaches and supporting people in your communities. And I'm really grateful that we can be together here for a little while and share.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much,
you.
Josh. Josh, I like what Mr. Mayers here wrote. Coaching is like parenting. Recognize each person learns and hears differently. And that's amazing as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks, AJ.
Yeah, and I'd just love to add, Josh, just one more. I think it was Michaela put in a statement earlier about somebody that she worked with, and it took 6 months before they started getting interested in emotional intelligence, and change can also happen after months. And it just reminded me of Reem's scuba diving. You get the bends maybe if you get too quick, you get to the surface. So maybe that process of getting to the surface can take a long time. So thank you, Reem and Michaela, for putting those two images there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I wanted to mention that next week we have a live stream about racism and emotions, which I think is going to be a very powerful and maybe provocative conversation. I think I was dreaming about it last night. It's a very challenging place to get honest about feelings around racism. And we have 2 panelists next week who are sharing, will be sharing their experiences and their clients' experiences. And so I'm looking forward to that conversation. I hope to see you all next week at the same time. And Tom, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. First of all, if you enjoyed the conversation that we had today, we do these things every week. So if you want to keep updated, hit the subscribe button and share this video, like it. Tell your friends. That helps us really keep this work going. I wanted to say that from today, it really, every time we talk about coaching, is such a fascinating conversation, because there is always more to learn from each other. And coaching is such a transformational process that if you haven't tried it yourself, I'm guessing that since you're here and you stick around for the whole hour, you probably know something about coaching already. But if you haven't tried, you should definitely try it. And people that haven't tried it yet, I don't think they understand the true power of coaching, and like when to call a coach. Is coaching for you? And I think that's a missed opportunity. I think most people should know about it. Like therapy is so popular, coaching should be kind of more of a known methodology as well. So as Josh said, stick around for next week. We're gonna do the same time, Tuesday, 8 a.m. Pacific time. So yeah, see you next week.
If this was helpful, would you please comment, like, share, and subscribe? The Emotional Intelligence Network is your community to grow and practice EQ. At 6 seconds, that means being smarter with feelings. And we're here to provide practical, proven EQ tools so workplaces, schools, and people can thrive everywhere in the world. Be sure to visit 6seconds.org to find the complete suite of resources, assessments, and programs. Thank you for watching.